In this video series, we are going to begin with the JavaScript. JavaScript is basically a scripting language which can be embedded in a HTML page. HTML page simply means any web page which is running on World Wide Web. Once you embed the JavaScript in the page, you can provide the various functionalities to that particular web page, such as you can put some validations, you can make the page even more interactive, you can put some animation kind of things. So that is all we can do using the JavaScript. So make sure before getting started with the JavaScript, you have the sufficient knowledge of HTML and CSS, as we will be working with the web page, and these two are the important things which you must know for creating the interactive web page. Now, here, as I just said, it's a scripting language, but if I'll add something more, I will say it is a client-side scripting language. Client-side means whenever you will execute the JavaScript on a web page, the complete execution will happen on the client side only. There will be no server-side interaction while executing the JavaScript. That's why whenever we'll try to do some operations like putting the validations or doing the animation like things, everything will execute on the client side, which will also efficiently execute the page, means the performance of the page will be more better. Now, something more about JavaScript, let's see. It is untyped. Untyped means if we know something about the programming languages, you may know about the thing called data types, which specifies the type of data we are going to process. But while working with JavaScript, you will observe like it is untyped, means it is not a type safe language. So whenever you will have to store something, you will just use a variant type, and that type can store any type of value. So we will have to take care like which type of data we are going to manipulate manually. Apart from that, it is multi-paradigm, means you can do various kinds of development, website development things related to JavaScripts. Nowadays, JavaScript is also a backbone of so many different technologies like jQuery, AngularJS, Node.js, and so many JS-like technology you may be hearing nowadays. It is functional, which will make the code even more modular. You can split the particular code in the different functions, and you can call them up on a particular event, as it is also event driven. So using JavaScript in such a way will make it wonderful, and so that we can use it even more creatively. It is interpreted by browser's JavaScript engine. Now, if the question comes like when I write a simple HTML, how it runs? Every browser has a parser which reads the HTML tags and render the text accordingly. For example, if I use h1 tag, so the text written within the h1 would be shown as the h1, as a heading 1, the biggest heading. But if I say, what about JavaScript? Means if I am writing some logical code, some programming like code, how the browser will be able to execute that? So for that, as it is mentioned, every browser has the JavaScript engine. For example, for Chrome, it is V8 engine. For different browsers, it's different engine. So that JavaScript engine is actually able enough to execute the code which is written in the JavaScript. And make sure while doing this, your JavaScript must be enabled for that particular browser. Only then you will be able to see the execution of your JavaScript code. Now, let's move on to some more advantages of JavaScript, as it is less server interaction. Alright, means while executing, it will execute mostly on the client side, so it will be a lesser interaction with the server, and that will make the performance better. Alright, because if the code is here only and it is running on the client side, the page will not be posted back to the server again and again, and that will definitely enhance the performance of your web page. Richer interface. As in jQuery, we internally use some of the functions of JavaScript which makes the interface even more better. So you can say like it will give you a richer interface through animations or through some dynamic CSS kind of things, which will make it even more attractive and the client will feel like good while working with the web pages. Increased interactivity, that's what it means. All right, when you will create a rich interface, a more interactive interface, it will be good for the client and it will keep on coming to you. So these are some key features of JavaScript. From our next video onwards, we will start with the implementation of it. In this video of JavaScript, we are going to cover arrays. In computer science, array is basically a data structure which allows us to store multiple values in a single variable. Yes, earlier we have read that it is not possible, but the way to do this thing is actually a bit different. Here, when we will define such variable, that variable will actually behave like a collection. And in that particular collection, there will be a number of memory blocks would be defined. How many memory blocks? That we will define while defining the arrays. That means when we will define the array, along with the definition, we will specify the number of blocks which we want, and after that we can start storing the value in each of those element blocks. And since, as you can see, it stores a fixed size sequential collection of elements, that means it is a fixed size. The size which you will specify by the time of creating the array, later you will not be able to change that. And if you will try to store values more than that, your program may get terminated abnormally. So make sure while defining the array, you are specifying a handsome amount of size which will not cause any overflowing. Now you have defined the elements, number of elements of an array, and after that you can start storing the values into that. Whenever you want to access a specific element block from that list of array blocks, you have to pass the index, as whenever you create an array, the index of each memory series starts with a 0 to 1, 2, 3 and so on. For example, if I have defined an array of size 5, then the lower index will start with 0, then 1, 2, 3 and 4. So whenever I want to retrieve or assign the value, I have to pass the index like that. So here you can see there are a couple of syntaxes about writing the data, how we can start writing the data or elements in an array. So here what I have done, I have taken a var fruits. Fruits is the name of my array, is equal to new array. Alright, this new is a keyword to allocate a new and fresh memory space, and into that you can pass the elements like apple, orange, mango. So it is sequential storage. Here I have not specified the size. You can also do that, like you can say new array 5 and then later you can assign the values. Here I directly stored the value. So the first element will get stored in the index 0, then 1 and 2. And very similarly I have done here as well. So both are the valid syntaxes if I talk about JavaScript. Once you have defined the array, and after that if you want to retrieve the elements in separately, alright, so what you can do, fruits like the name of the array, and then in the square brackets you can pass the index. As I said earlier, index will start with 0. So when you will say fruit 0, so it will give you apple, fruits 1 will give you orange, and fruits 2 will give you mango. So let's see practically now how we can start implementing the concept of arrays. So now in this implementation of arrays, as you can see, first of all I have defined the array of length 5 and I have used new keyword for allocating a new and fresh space for this particular array. The size of the array is 5, that means it will create 5 separate element blocks in which you can put a specific value. And to point out those particular blocks, we can pass the index. So like here you can see the index is starting from the 0, then 1, 2, 3 and 4. So in this particular index you can assign any type of value. As JavaScript is not a type safe language, you can put any type of value, but when we talk about array, basically it is the collection. So we generally make a collection of similar type. Here I have put the value of same types, and now to read that particular array, what I can do is I have just written a loop which will start from the 0 till the less than 5, that means 4. And obviously it will run, this loop will run from 0 to 4, and at every time I am running this, I am reading the ith index, which is changing from 0 to 4. So, and every time I am printing the value, I am breaking the line as well. So let's see how this particular output will be looking like. So as expected, here the value from 10 to 50 is being printed. You can also do the inline initialization for the array, as here you can see right after the new array I have not passed the size, but I have used the curly braces to initialize all the values. So here I have passed 5 values. So array is always having a static memory allocation. Any particular number of values which you will pass here, that will be the size of the array. For example, if I'll pass the 6th element, now the length of the array is 6. So let's execute it till the 5th index. If it is 6, length is 6, the last index would be 5. Alright, so let's refresh this one, and here you can see the output. So as we have discussed these particular syntaxes in the description also, like there are various ways of initializing an array, and anytime you want to read, you can simply pass the index after that and you can retrieve the value. When we have a number of elements all together, sorting and searching are the two very important tasks that we need to do. If we have a number of elements stored in an array and I want to sort them in a particular order, that is either ascending or descending order, I can go for the sorting concepts. And here I have written a very simple program of bubble sort in which I am sorting an array in ascending order of length 6. So here in the very first line you can see I have assigned some values in an array like 7, 2, 8, 1, 3, 4. It's random values I have put inside this, and now I want to sort it out. So before sorting, I have just printed the value right here like this before sort, and if, as you know, it's a 6 number of elements are there, so 0 to 5 this loop is running, and I'll print each and every value out there. Now as soon as I printed, I'll start doing the bubble sort. So for any successful bubble sort, I need to run a loop for n into n minus 1 times. So that is what I have done here. Like here it's n is the length of the array, that is 6. So this loop is running for the 6 times, inner loop is running for the 5 times, so overall it will be running at the 30 times. So that is the maximum number of cycles that we have to execute for a successful bubble sort. So let's see what I have done inside this particular loop. So here you can see like j is started from 0 and obviously it is less than 5. So when the first time this loop would be running, the value of j is 0 and j plus 1 is of course 1. So if the value of the earlier value, if the earlier value is greater than the later value, for example j is 0 and 1, so if ARR 0 is greater than ARR 1, of course in this particular case 7 is greater than 2. So what I want is I'll have to swap these two values so that 2 will come before the 7. Alright, that will not make it a complete sort, but of course the two values will be sorted because it is the ascending order, so any smaller value have to come before the greater value. So that is what I have done inside this. Like these 3 lines are simply swapping the values of the 0th and 1th index. So the index or the value of 1th index will be here in the 0th index, and the 7 which is at 0th index will come to the 1st index. So similarly this loop will go for this 5 times, means 0 to 4 index would be covered, and of course as you can see here in the logic I am putting j plus 1, so the last index is 5. When j is 4, so what it will be saying, if ARR4 is greater than ARR5, that means these two values will be compared, and if required the swapping will take place, but only in one cycle. The complete sorting will not be done. So to iterate this particular concept again and again, I have placed it inside this another loop, and it will make it show like in 30 cycles this loop will be sorted completely, and after that I have printed the loop again in the very same way I have done it earlier. So let's execute, and here you can see the output. Like initially it was like 7 2 8 1 3 4, and later it's 1 2 3 4 7 8. Alright, if you want to sort it to the descending order, you can simply replace the greater than symbol to the less than. Now the swapping will be done when the smaller value is before the larger value. So now you can see this whole array is being converted into the descending order sorted. In this video of JavaScript, we will begin with the variables. As in the programming and even in the scripting of JavaScript, variables are something which can store a single value at a time temporarily. Temporarily means the value can be changed later during the execution if required. As earlier we have already discussed in the features of JavaScript, like it is not a type safe language, so whenever you will be defining any variable, it will not be having any specific data type. So we will use a var, that is variant keyword, whenever we will go for any variable declaration, and after that we can assign any type of value. But since we want to be logical, we will not try to do so and will stick to a single data type of value. Now whenever you will start working with the variables, they would be having two scopes, either local or global, but practically we will do that as soon as we will start working with the functions. So if any variable is defined inside a function, that is a local variable, and if you define any variable out of the functions, it will be a global variable, means it can be accessed inside any functions you are making. But initially it is nothing like that, because we are not going to implement any functions. So let's see practically how can we start working with the variables in JavaScript. So now in order to declare the variable, here we will use the var keyword, and after that you will name the identifier. So like here, if I want to store some name, I will name the variable, that is the name, and then if you want you can assign the value right here, or you can do it later. So if I want to assign the value, what I'll do, I'll put a double quotes, since here I want to store the string type of data. As we already discussed that JavaScript is not a type safe language, it is loosely typed language, so you don't have to specify a specific data type right here. Just by specifying the var keyword, you can define a variable, and after that you can assign any type of value into it. Let's say here I assign a value. Similarly, if I want to assign some other things like age, which is a numeric value, I can do that as well. And similarly, you can assign any type of value like the same. For example, if you want to assign some decimal numbers also, you can do that in the very same way, like this. And similarly, whenever you want to print the data, you will use the same method, that is document.write, which we have already used, either document.write or document.writeln. So make sure that whenever you are printing the value of an identifier, you will not put them in the quotation, and you will keep them like this. But if you want to put anything before that, you can simply put it in double quotes like name, and then a concatenation symbol, that is the plus. So let's save this one and see the output in the browser. So as here you can see, similarly if I want to do some more things, I can do that in a very simple way. If I will run this, you will see all the things in the same line like this, But if you want to break the line, as we know, we use the BR in the HTML. So I will simply concatenate that right after each message like this. And again in age, and if I'll do anything after salary, so that will again come in the next line. So now this is the output we were looking for. So similarly like this, you can start creating the variables and can assign the values as per your requirement. So far in the JavaScript, whichever code we have written having a linear execution, means from the line 1 to the last line it kept on executing. But if I want to execute few things on a particular condition only, I can go for the conditional statements, as these condition statements will first compare the conditions using the variables and the operators which we have already covered, and if the condition is satisfied, then it will do the particular task. So here in JavaScript we have a couple of conditional statements such as the if else and switch, where if else will be used by in JavaScript code like if, after then we can specify a condition, and if the condition is not satisfied we can pass the else statement. And secondly, we have a switch statement which will be doing a short circuiting like thing, means a direct execution as soon as the condition is matched. But in this video only we will just cover the introduction of it. In our next video onwards we will start with the implementation of if and switch statement separately. Now in the conditional statements, let's talk about the if else statement. As I already discussed in the previous video, it is used to pass some conditions, that is, after the if keyword I can pass any condition using the logical or comparison operator, and if the condition is not satisfied then we can go for the else. But else is optional, so you are not forced to add the else keyword right after the if. So this is how the execution will take place. Like when the code flow will be happening, there will be a condition carried by the if keyword. If the condition is true, then only we will execute the conditional code. If it is false, we will terminate that particular code, means that particular code will not get executed. You can also change the multiple conditions using the else if, means if the first condition is false, you can proceed with the second condition, and the second condition will with else if will only be compared when the first condition is false. So let's see practically how can we implement this else if and if statements all together. So here we are implementing the if statement. What we are doing here is we will be taking the marks of any three subjects from a student, and after that I'll sum them up and will calculate the percentage. On the basis of the percentage, I will assign them a grade, like whether it's grade A, B, C or D. So what I'm doing here is using the prompt box, I'm taking all the three marks. Now whenever you will enter something in the prompt box, it will be treated as the string. So here whenever you will use the plus operator for adding the things, it will actually be concatenated and you will not get the desired result. So in order to make them treated like the integer, what I have done is I have used the method called or function called parse int. So in this parse int, what it will do, it will convert the type to the integer. So now when I will add this when I will use this plus symbol, it will actually add them rather than concatenating. So once I get the total, I have applied a very simple formula for calculating the percentage, and here I am considering the maximum marks as 50. So whatever the percentage is there, I will print that, and after that on the basis of that percentage I will pass the conditions in order to get the grades. Now here you can see it is if, and right after this it's a parenthesis inside which I will pass a statement which will return a boolean value. So here I am using this comparison operator, and we have already discussed about it. like whenever you will be using the comparison operator, it will return you a boolean. So if this particular condition is true, I will get an alert box with the thing grade A. Now if this condition is incorrect, so it actually depends what you have written after that. For example, if I don't have these line of codes, so if the percentage is not greater than 80, nothing is going to happen. If it is greater than or equal to 80, I will get a message grade A. But it's all depends on the situation and your requirement, like what and how you want to do in a condition. Means if this condition is incorrect and I don't want to do anything in the condition when the condition is incorrect, so I will leave the program like that. But if I want to do something, if this condition is incorrect, or if I want to check some more conditions, if this condition is false, then I can go for all these things. Like here you can see it is not a if, but it is else if. Means this condition will be checked only when the previous condition is false. If this is true, this will never be compared. Similarly, if this condition is returning true, then we will not go to all these statements. This condition will only be checked when this will return a false, and so on. And similarly, when all the conditions are false, only then the control will come in the else part. So this is a chaining thing, right? You can see whenever I'm using the else if, that means each and every condition is changed, and it will come, the control will come inside them only when the previous conditions are false. So for example, if I have entered something and the percentage is having 85, so 85 is greater than 80, 85 is greater than 60 also, 85 is greater than 40 also. But as I said, if this particular condition is true, the control will never come in these conditions. So doesn't matter whether they will return true or false, nothing is going to happen. So let's save the program and see the output in the browser. So let's refresh this. Here I'll enter the marks. So as I said, like I'm taking the marks out of 50. So I entered 45, 46, 47. They are pretty good marks. So obviously the percentage is good. That is 92. And here I'll get grade A. Similarly, if I'll enter some marks like 34, 32, 37. So the percentage is something 68. So it will get grade B. And similarly, if the marks are quite low, like 14, 24 and 12, so it's 33%, it's grade D. Alright, so on that particular basis you can actually calculate the things and can pass the conditions using the if statement. Apart from that, you can use any operator which we have covered earlier, which are returning a boolean value. So this is a very basic implementation of if statement.